good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori Van Egeren. I'm the Interim Associate Provost for University Outreach and Engagement at Michigan State University, and I'm a member of the ARIS leadership team. It is my great pleasure to introduce this afternoon's keynote speakers for our keynote on Etap Bolsters NSF efforts to promote equity. We have two keynote speakers today. Dr. Clemencia Cosentino is the National Science Foundation Chief Evaluation Officer and Evaluation and Assessment Capability Section Head. And Dr. Cecilia Speroni is an evaluator in the Evaluation and Assessment Capability Section and a research affiliate at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Now, this keynote is co-sponsored by NORDA, and it's going to describe the NSF Education and Training Application, or Etap, which is a very exciting innovation and initiative designed to support NSF's human capital development programs. We're going to have plenty of time for questions at the end, and you can put your questions in the hub. So right now, we will let Dr. Cosentino and Dr. Speroni take it away.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you so much for inviting us today. Both of us are really delighted to be presenting at the ARIS Summit. NSF has been working really hard to improve, meaning to broaden participation in our programs and to promote equity. But as we strive to achieve these goals, we face many constraints: legislative, regulatory, budgetary, you name it. And these constraints can sometimes actually be leveraged for good. And today, I want to showcase one such example where we had a requirement we needed to comply with. And instead of coming up with a check the box exercise, NSF embraced it to try to make broader improvements. So you will learn about this ongoing initiative that we call Etap, the Education and Training Application. And we believe that it has the potential to be truly transformative in helping us in our efforts to promote equity and participation in NSF programming and in the STEM workforce. This initiative traces its roots to legislation that imposed on NSF a new requirement. The American Competes Act, which was enacted many years ago, created a requirement for the REU program only to track participants' education and employment outcomes, to describe them actually first, and then to track their outcomes for multiple years. NSF saw an opportunity to essentially extract value out of this requirement, extract value out of a congressional requirement to the benefit of both NSF and our community of stakeholders. If you attended yesterday's presentation with Dr. Diedler, who is my boss, in fact, the head of our Office of Integrated Activities, she made reference to one of NSF's pillars, which is bringing the missing millions, quote unquote, into the STEM workforce. She mentioned Granted as an example of a strategy that NSF is putting forward to help advance our goals. Etap is another strategy aligned with this same strategic pillar. And Dr. Speroni in a few minutes will describe how we see Etap doing this, how we see Etap helping us achieve this goal. And it really is a system that relies on networks of people and on networks of institutions to really leverage its power. We are pilot testing it still. We first pilot tested the basic idea, then we improved on it and we tested it again, and now we are scaling it up. For those of you who have heard our new director, or maybe not so new anymore, but our director talk about speed and scale. Well, we're trying to scale at speed, but the pilot test of the system. We are still very much in the design and develop phase to make sure that we can truly leverage the potential that we think the system has. And we are really delighted to get to this point where we actually can come outside of NSF to talk about Etap and to share what we see as its great value to this community and other communities as well. So as you hear Dr. Speroni describe it, I hope that you will start thinking about how can this system help me and my students and my faculty, and what can NSF do to improve it? Because those are two very different questions, and we don't want you to take Etap as is. Now, it may be that we might not be able to do what you suggest, but we would truly welcome your ideas so we can all work together to try to leverage this system to achieve the broadening participation and equity goals that we've set out for ourselves. So I trust that you will be as excited about Etap as we are. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Speroni to share our vision for Etap and to give you all kinds of details about the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Clemencia, and hello, everyone. Thank you for having us speaking with you today. So I'm going to just dive into Etap, starting by what it is. So Etap stands for Education and Training Application, and it's a secure online platform that NSF is pilot testing to connect students with NSF funded opportunities. And the way that it does it is by giving principal investigators access of NSF awards, access to a common application system that they can customize for their needs. As Clemencia mentioned, the system has always been envisioned to do more than just reporting to Congress. NSF saw this as an opportunity to collect high quality data from students, leveraging a moment when students have the incentive to provide accurate and complete information, such as when they are applying for a program. And these allowing NSF to have more robust and complete data to robust monitoring and future evaluation of the program. But it also was an opportunity to provide a service to the NSF community, a service that intentionally promotes equity and participation in NSF programs. For students, Etap can provide a centralized and transparent source of information about NSF funded opportunities, and it reduces burden for them to apply because they can now use a common application to apply for multiple opportunities, which currently they have to apply separately. It also provides a service to PIs. That is, it makes it easier for new PIs to join and be onboarded in an NSF program because they probably don't have to come up with a common application system from scratch. And it also is a service for existing PIs because they can now leverage an application system and manage applications at ease, and also hopefully get access to data that can be useful for their own reflection on the program. And of course, we had to include a quote from our very own Susan, that she has always been a supporter of this effort, and she truly believes that we have put together a dream that she has been having for many, many years. Oops, there. So let me start by showing you a very short video. It's actually 3 minutes long that provides a good summary of what Etap can offer. So I'm going to go to the Etap website, which is nsf.org. We are currently working on switching over to a .gov, but from the time being, you can access the website at nsfetap.org, and you're welcome to look around and get a feel for the application. I'm going to go to the Principal Investigator tab, which is where there is a few videos, and I'm going to show the very first one.
The NSF Education Training Application, also known as ETAP, is a secure online platform that provides you, the principal investigator access to unique tools to help you manage your NSF award opportunities all in one place. Etap offers you a free, full-fledged common application system. Within Etap, you can easily create opportunities for applicants to participate in and have readily available information about applicants and participants to fulfill NSF reporting requirements. You can tailor your application requirements to include the materials that are most helpful to you, such as electronic reference letters, personal statements, college transcripts, and more. Whether you want your opportunity to be publicly advertised to recruit students nationally, or you are just asking program participants to report to NSF information about themselves, Etap can help. Getting started with Etap is easy and straightforward. Simply create an account, import your NSF awards, and start managing your opportunities. Plus, you don't have to do everything alone. A special feature of Etap is that it allows you to assemble teams and delegate tasks to help you manage your opportunity. To set up an opportunity, start by providing information to help prospective applicants decide whether your opportunity would be a good fit for them. Then, specify what information you need to decide if applicants would be a good fit for your opportunity. This includes your application window, who can view and apply, and your application requirements. After setup is complete, the only thing left is to publish your opportunity. Now you will have a unique link you can share to promote your opportunity. Want to tap into the growing pool of prospective applicants coming to NSF Etap? Choose to make your opportunity publicly available in the setup process for it to appear in the Search Opportunities section of Etap, a search specifically optimized to leverage information you provide for applicants to quickly find opportunities that match their interests. Etap helps you review applications and report participation with ease. When you're ready to review applicants, Etap offers the option to manage applicants individually through an interactive table, or use bulk actions to manage multiple applicants at a time. For example, you can download all application materials with just a click of a button. Then you report participation and you're done. Need award participant statistics for writing a renewal proposal? Curious to see how your applicants compare to your participants? You can access reports, which provide descriptive statistics about your participants and how they compare to participants in other opportunities. You can also access raw data to support your own analysis. Etap is here to support you every step of the way. We invite you to explore all Etap has to offer. Etap is available to use now at nsfetap.org.
All right. Oops.
Getting started with
There we go. So if this video left you excited and wanting to learn more, then we did our job right. It was designed to give PIs, in particular, a flavor of what the system has to offer them. And for those that decided to use the system, there are a few additional videos and that are more into the mechanics of how to get started using the system. So let me go back to the presentation and tell you a little bit about the data collection. So the Etap data collection can really be thought conceptually divided in two parts. The first part is what we call the Nsf Registration Form, which everyone needs to complete. This form, I know there's a lot of information in this screen, but basically it's the different data elements that are included in this registration form. As you can imagine, it includes things as personal information, contact information, so that they can be tracked in the future. We also collect data on demographic. We have some measures of socioeconomic status. In particular, we ask about parental education so that we can learn about first-generation students participating in our programs. And we recently included a question that we're testing that gets at whether they have ever received a Pell Grant. Etap collects information about degrees and if and current enrollment, and if they're currently enrolled in a university, then there's a few additional questions that students need to provide. And if the applicant is a teacher, because we are also, the system is currently being used by the Research Experience for Teachers programs. So if the applicant is a teacher, then there's a few additional questions that we collect on teachers, such as where they're currently working or the type of certification that they have. So this is what the system is currently collecting. We are, as we said, throughout a pilot, so things might get revised over time, but this is how it looks today. And you can actually see screenshots of this form in the website. The direct link is at the bottom of these slides, but you can access it through the Principal Investigator Frequently Asked Questions as well. Beyond this registration form that I talked about, everything else in Etap is customizable. The principal investigator of an award gets to choose whether they want to request additional materials. In particular, they can choose to request a personal statement. They can ask for students to upload a CV or resume. They can request unofficial copies of electronic copies of transcript to be uploaded into the system. They can also ask for reference letters, and whether they want to ask for reference letters, and if so, how many to request. And Etap handles electronic letters. And a neat feature of the system is that it actually allows the student to monitor whether those letters have been submitted on their behalf, so that they don't call the PI or the help desk to know whether their application is complete. And very importantly, the system allows PIs to add questions or request additional materials that had not been covered by the registration form. Based on some feedback that we have gotten through the help desk, we recently enhanced the functionality for these additional questions, and now PIs can get to choose or preset what type of response they want from students, whether it's a short, it's an open text answer, or it's a multiple choice, yes, no, or a preference, whether, you know, maybe they are offering several research projects and want the students to rank their preference in terms of what to work on during the summer, and questions like that. Quite importantly, all these materials are electronically available to the PI in one place. In the backend, Etap also has external administrative data preloaded into the system. And at the moment, we currently have the list of all K-12 schools in the United States, as well as higher education institutions and their characteristics. There are several reasons why we are including this data in the system. An important reason is to reduce burden, right? We do want to have information of whether the student is coming from a 2-year college or a 4-year college, or whether the teacher is working in a rural school or a school that has a high percentage of students in free or reduced price lines. But we do not want to ask that question to the user. All we need to do is to ask them to report where they're currently enrolled or where they're currently working from a drop-down menu. It's more than a drop-down menu, it's a lookup or a search function. So the student, the student or the applicant will choose, will select that school, and then NSF and PIs would automatically have access to a wealth of data that it's available about that institution. This improves the quality of the data that we will have available, and also the analytical value, because we do have more information that we can leverage for our own analysis. PIs get to access the data in several ways. The first one is that they can download each application in a PDF. And they can do that one by one, or they can choose to use a bulk download function. Quite frequently, PIs like to download data in a CSV form that they can read in Excel. And it's a very easy to use file where there is one record per applicant, and then all the information is displayed in different variables in a wide format. These type of output makes it very easy for them to select and screen applicants. And they also get to access aggregate reports. These are aggregate statistics of their own data, and also statistics, benchmark statistics of other users in that program that are using Etap at the moment, so that they can have some reference of how their applicants and their particular participants look like compared to others. An important feature of Etap is that the PIs gets to choose whether they want to make the opportunity publicly available or not. And the reason we developed this feature is because there are some programs, such as a few RU supplements, that do not really recruit or make a competition for the slots, but rather they have they select students, they pre-select them. They have 1 or 2 students working in their lab throughout the summer or the year. And therefore, those types of opportunities might want to choose running an application type by invitation only. Regardless of how the PI, what the PI decides, each opportunity will get this unique URL that they can use to disseminate the opportunity or share the link to a particular student. For those opportunities for which the PI decided to make publicly available, those opportunities will be listed in this public search that is available at Etap. And this is, students can search and can browse through this public listing, and hopefully these will get, students will get familiar or will discover opportunities that they have never thought existed, and maybe are a good match for them. Something neat about this functionality is that it's really leveraging information that the PI provides when they are setting up their opportunity. So there are a few questions that the PI is asked about where such as where the opportunity will happen, or keywords that students can use to find that opportunity, or what are the types of students that the opportunity serves. And that is exactly the information that is leveraged here, so that we are able to find students with the right opportunity. Very recently, last summer, we have done a big effort to upgrade the system, not just in the back end in terms of the technology it was using, but also in the front end. So we had web front end developers, we have web content strategists, we had editors all working together to make sure that the website is mobile friendly, it's FiOA compliant, and it's also welcome. It also feels welcoming to everyone. That was an important goal of this redesign. And to give you a concrete example of our efforts to make the website more inclusive, originally we were asking gender sort of in this traditional binary way, male, female. And we quickly realized that that was not working. We received numerous complaints at the help desk of students and PIs concerned about our use of non-inclusive measures for gender. So we revised, we did a literature review, we looked at the guidance, and we revised the questions so that we were capturing both sex and gender. This is a specification that we're currently using. So first we ask sex at birth, and then the gender they identify with. And we offer the opportunity for them to write in other if they wish to do so. So what we have learned so far, this two-step specification is actually working pretty well. We no longer have calls in the help desk, which is very important. The vast majority of applicants are willing to provide information on both sex and gender, and the share that actually choose I do not wish to provide is very similar for both items. We also learn a little bit more about what students tend to choose when they write other, when they write a self-identity in the other specify. And for the most part, the vast majority are saying non-binary. But there are many other terms that are used, such as gender fluid, agender, gender queer, non-conforming, and questioning. Etap also has a help desk support that it's particularly about Etap. This is very helpful for PIs because it filters some of the questions that would have from students that would have otherwise go directly to the PI, such as questions about eligibility. For us, for NSF, the help desk is a way of learning and improving and throughout this pilot. So we hear, we have a direct line of communications with the end user, and we learn what's working, what's not. We hear there about not just bugs, but how the system can be improved in the future. We have also tested a participant exit survey. We tested it 1 year at a small scale, and now we are making some revisions in terms of what we have learned, and we're about to test it at a larger scale. The goal of this survey is to get the participant perspective. So it's a very short survey that gets administered at the end of an experience, a research experience, or at the end of the program, as it's determined by the PI when they set up the opportunity. And it covers things that could help us answer different questions, such as whether the program is creating opportunities, whether these students are experiencing high quality mentorships. We also have some questions that are about that invite students to reflect on whether the program had any influence on their goals or career aspirations. And then there are questions about satisfaction, general satisfaction on the program, and whether there are any recommendations for improvement in the future, sort of to get some formative feedback that could be useful for future revisions of the program. And this is the last slide that we have before we turn it over to questions and answers. And this is an ongoing pilot, and we very much welcome your involvement. There are two main ways that you can get involved. The first one is that if you know of a PI, if you're a PI, or if you know of a PI that has an active NSF award that and you would like to use the system, then by all means, please reach out to us. You have the help desk contact information at the bottom of this slide. We can help you figure out whether Etap is right for you. There are some programs that that are already using the Etap. We have the research experience for undergraduates. We have the research experience for teachers, the ARIS, international research experience for students also using the system. We have a graduate fellowship using the system. And we're actually presenting Etap to the EPSCoR program. We have a conference next week with EPSCoR PI, so we're opening it up for them to really think whether there are opportunities funded by those awards that might welcome and use Etap to test it out and let us know whether it works and how it can be improved. You can also contact us to share your wish list with us. This is a prime time where we're putting all our effort into designing and testing and revising so that we can offer an application that is useful for you. We welcome ideas for system enhancements, ideas for I talked a lot about the type of data that PIs get access, but you, as I know many of you are administrators, so what type of access to the data you would like to have, so that we can start thinking what are the restrictions and what we can do to make that that type of usage of the data available. And as a reminder to get involved, you're going to receive, if you choose, when you were registering, if you have indicated that you wanted to receive a gift, I know in a few weeks you will be getting this beautiful bottle that has the IRIS and the Etap logo on it. So hopefully when you get that, that's another reminder to stay in touch. And contact us and with ideas or any thought that this meeting has provoked you. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and see whether there are any questions.
Well, thank you for that, Cecilia. That was just amazing. I know how excited I was when I saw this and that all of our team were and other BI professionals. It's, I think, really quite a remarkable effort, knowing how hard it is. I'm a program evaluator myself, so I understand the challenges involved in developing a system and to make it both so useful from a data collection standpoint, but also a service that can really measurably affect our PIs and our students in positive ways to be able to get connected for these experiences is really a tremendous achievement. And love to hear that you're also willing to continue to think about how to improve it and open to the community. In fact, we just had a convening that may have come up earlier a week or two ago of BI professionals and some others and the leadership team for ARIS. And one of the major discussions there was the need for data that can support understanding better the needs and resources needed and the impacts of broader impacts initiatives in general. So this fits right in. We do have some questions that have come in. And they're getting into the weeds. So people are very much thinking about how can they implement this. So one is there a field for students' unique identifier at their own school? So this would allow easy crosswalking from the Etap database to the data within the internal databases of the institution. So is there anything like that built into the system currently?
No, we haven't thought about that. That is a great suggestion. And I can see how that will help you and the BI as well.
And I've encountered this in a system that we created, and yeah, we had a field where one could put in, this was K-12, but they could put in their state ID and use that to link across. So that's a great, interesting idea. One question. So thank you for presenting sort of the process of thinking through gender. identity as part of this. We did have a question of, do you think you can further amend the gender section? Male and female are not gender identifiers. And can you add the identifiers that people used in the other category so they don't have to feel othered?
If I may, I would love to take that one. So this is something we've been thinking about for a very long time. In fact, even though we made the change in response to requests from students and PIs, it was something we had been thinking and discussing within NSF at a time when it was not, when NSF was just collecting binary gender. So this has been going on, as I said, for a few years. This conversation is still ongoing. What has happened since is that the Office of Management and Budget has created an interagency group to consider developing an approach to gender identity measurement and sexual orientation measurement across federal government, so that we are all consistent and harmonized in our measurement approaches. So we are at present waiting to hear from this interagency working group in which NSF sits to see what it is that they propose and consider that in light of both the literature, what we know about gender identity and sexual orientation measurement, and NSF's own research. NSF is conducting research at present through NCSES and through the one of our directorates, EHR, Education and Human Resources Directorate. And so we will be taking all of this into account as we consider how to go. Now that's the NSF answer. I'll give you my personal answer too. It is so difficult because identity is such a changing attribute of individuals. I think of myself as a woman, female, nothing exciting about the way I think of my gender, but I have to say that I think of myself very differently today than I did a few years ago, and certainly than I did 10 and 20 years ago. If I were to describe myself today, I describe myself in using different words than I would have several years ago. And I think that that's also the case with gender identity and sexual orientation. There are such evolving constructs of identity that I think it will be continuously a challenge to try to find the optimal solution. My personal opinion is that we should not create closed-ended responses. We should not box people into checking words that may not be meaningful to them, but instead we should allow them to type in who they think they are. It will give us a lot more work for the researchers among you to recode all these text entries, but I think it will give us more authentic answers. But as I said, that is a personal opinion and not the opinion of the National Science Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think it is very, very challenging, and there is no single right answer to these kinds of questions. But I think it's very heartening to know that there's a cross-agency discussion about how to approach gender. So here's another question. May data be added to Etap by proxies, or can they only be the PIs or co-PIs? So can you have your research staff, lab assistants, third-party evaluators, and so forth access the system, or does this need to be monitored and conducted specifically by the PIs, co-PIs?
Yes, so the PI can, or co-PI, are automatically eligible to create an account in Etap and access to their associated awards. And they can delegate and invite other users to have access to manage their own awards. And there are two different types of attributes. They can designate users as a proxy, and that will grant that person like the maximum type of privileges in the system. And they can also choose to select them or to invite them as a reviewer or a mentor, sort of like to review applications and help them in the selection process.
Wonderful, thank you. So that gives much more flexibility than having to try to, which would increase the administrative burden on PIs. You've specifically made sure to be able to have that distributed across different roles. Question on the exit survey. So I'm sure people were excited to see that there was a potential to have an exit survey and get some data back from students around this. Does or will Etap have evidence-based questionnaires or constructs that PIs could use for the application and the exit survey? So right now you have some short questions, if I recall, right? So I think there's a question of, can you use evidence-based questionnaires for that exit survey? I guess the question is, will there be the opportunity to customize the exit survey?
That's we haven't thought about that. It's a great suggestion. So far, the survey is short. We actually want to make it shorter. It has 15 questions about, and we probably will try to make it shorter. And they're all they're using questions that that have been asked before. Typically, like there are many other surveys for undergraduates. You might be familiar with the URSA or the SURES surveys. So we sort of gather some items from other surveys that have been tested before, but currently there is no customization for that survey. Clemencia, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want to add something. Of course, everything Cecilia said is right, but I want to remember that this is a government collection. So that means that we have to submit a package to the Office of Management and Budget under the Paperwork Reduction Act to request permission to carry out the collection. So whenever we do these collections, we have to justify the need for the information to the government. So this particular exit survey was designed at the request of NSF program officers who wanted to hear directly from the students. They wanted to know certain things. So that was the driving force behind it. Now, that does not mean that we couldn't consider in the future, if someone came with an idea of, wouldn't it be fantastic to ask this question? And I could imagine that a survey could be tailored to add some questions, maybe for one cycle, but not permanently, or maybe permanently if a question turns out to be very, very valuable. But at the moment, it was designed really to meet the needs identified by program officers. And if we wanted to make a change, we could, but we would then have to resubmit to the Office of Management and Budget. And just to set expectations, it takes 6 to 9 months to get a package through. Now, this would be an amendment, so I'm sure it would be faster. But just putting that in so that if you start thinking about something you want us to consider doing, just note that we cannot make changes like that without permission from OMB.
Thank you for that reminder that this is not only a service, but it is a government reporting system. Yeah. People get excited. I know I am. You think, how can we make it do this? Can we get this? That'd be great. So I guess in a little bit of a follow-up there, do you foresee this as being mandatory for NSF-funded researchers at some point?
So that's the million-dollar question. When this system was designed, there was a consensus this would be voluntary. Initially, it was too voluntary among program officers. So program officers volunteered their discipline and their awards to participate in Etap. And then we went to the PIs and said, would you like to participate? All voluntary. Today, it remains voluntary. We go to PIs and we say the system exists if you want to leverage it. Only one directorate, and I actually don't know if I'm at liberty to say which one it is, so I'm not going to get in trouble and say it, but there is one directorate that will make using Etap a requirement for some of their awards. And when the solicitation comes out, it will be clearly explained. But NSF has not made a decision. And I will say it was never the vision. I do hope that NSF does adopt it. And I will tell you why. It is such a useful system. It's hard for me to believe that this system would not be an incredible benefit to the community. And I'm hoping that if it is required, there's even greater access for PIs and for institutions to the capabilities that the system offers. So but that's a personal opinion. Again, as I said, today it is voluntary, and so far NSF is waiting to see as the system scales up. NSF is trying to be very responsible. We need to test it, pressure test it with different types of programs, different types of users, different conditions of implementation, just to make sure that we're not asking folks to use a system that is not a good solution for them.
And I'm sure we're all happy about that because we've all been in systems that didn't get sufficient testing. So I think you're being very thoughtful about this. We have a couple of sort of questions about aggregating the data. So for programs that are similar across institutions like the REUs, is there a way to collapse applications together? So being able to potentially have a student be able to apply more broadly, be able to expand the pool for the program directors, but minimize the application load on students. Have you thought about that? You're muted right now.
I was just asking Cecilia if she wanted to take that question.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it is it asking about whether we have thought about making data on applicants more broadly across institutions?
I think, and I may be interpreting it wrong, so the person who posted the question could expand, but it looks to me like potentially like a common application, or maybe being able to select among opportunities that are all within a particular program if you're a student applicant. I'm going to guess that's what it means. Because it sounds like right now it's PI based, right? So a PI will.
Well, no, it is a common application. So the student needs to complete this NSF registration form, which is the bulk of the information, and then they get to select which particular opportunity they want to apply. In that, and then when they do that, it prompts them to say, oh, well, if you want to apply to this particular opportunity, there are a few additional questions that this opportunity requires. And it might be that the opportunity doesn't have any additional requirement, and then they can just select that institution, add it to the card, and submit. But it is a common application. There is a core that is common across, and it will be all that registration form will be part of their application to a particular opportunity. Though they have to select where they want to submit that information to, and the PI only gets to see the students that have fully submitted the application to their particular opportunity.
The feed's on a slight delay, so if the person is clarifying or expanding on their answer, feel free to do that and it'll come up. Thank you. So actually, I think that gets into the another question, which is there a way for the system to be useful to students who get rejected from various REU programs and are still looking for openings? Could their name go into a pool for PIs to consider? Could they be notified of opportunities still available? So I think that leads into what you were just describing. Can you respond to that?
Yes, so we are thinking about that. And we are actually in conversations with our lawyers to see what it would take to make something like that possible. We obviously will need to get permission from the students to make their information more broadly available to other opportunities they have not applied to. and set the parameters for how we can do that data sharing. It's not a functionality that it's currently available, but we know the need, and it will be in align with our goal of like broadening participation. We do want to sort of like help in this process of matching students with opportunities the best possible way. We just need to set parameters for how that's going to happen, if we are allowed to do that, something like that. Clemencia, you want to add something? No, okay.
Thank you, Cecilia. So here's one near and dear to my heart. I didn't ask this, but this was what I was thinking was, are there opportunities to administratively use the data at a university? So can one download the data for your institution to better understand that population of students who are participating in research? For example, through an API and a download process, or a downloaded, Excel or CSV file.
So this is a really excellent question. This is a new system being developed and in fact still being pilot tested. So we haven't thought through all of the implications. In fact, when we initially developed it, it was one of 3 pilot tests that we were doing. And this was the winning one. This was the one we decided is the way to go. And we never knew if NSF would actually adopt any of them, because the idea was, let's test and see what are better ways to collect the data, again, initially for the REU program, but then doing so, thinking of other programs and how to leverage this system more broadly. So we haven't gotten to that stage. Now, in order to get permission to pilot test the system and to collect real data on actual students and actual PIs and actual awards, we had to disclose the ways in which we had to think through and disclose the ways in which we would use the data. So we did think that through. We can use the data for multiple purposes, and those are disclosed in the system. You can actually see it in the website. But that's NSF, not others, except for PIs. Obviously, PIs and institutions can use the data to select students for those opportunities they have posted. So it's meant for PI selection, for example. But we have not thought through other potential uses of the data. So for example, NSF can use the data for monitoring purposes or for evaluation, but we haven't thought through, would we make this data accessible to an institution so that they could do their own evaluation? We will have applicant data. I could envision an academic saying, well, I consider these to be by benchmark institutions. Maybe they want to create a match sample of individuals that apply to their benchmark institutions to compare to those that apply to theirs and do an analysis. We haven't thought that through. And if that is of interest, it is something that we would like to hear and get ideas about what are the potential uses and why, because we would have to articulate what the uses are and we would have to justify them in order to have permission to use the data in that way. We have to get permission from OMB and we have to get consent from the users of the system. So there is a consent, there's consent language to which users have to agree. So it's something we can, as I said, and Cecilia said, the sky's the limit. We can consider everything. It doesn't mean that we can do everything, but we are certainly happy to consider it.
Well, I will put a plug in for being part of that discussion because all of our institutions, I think, are seeking metrics and ways and data to be able to document the kinds of activities that our students are participating in, that our PIs are offering, and what kinds of outcomes those are having in terms of students' eventual employment and scholarship and so forth. And there are not a lot of really good metrics, as you well know. And of course, this would be outputs, but it still is farther than we are now. I have a question of, it looks like this system is only for college students. Is there any plan to make this available for high school students as well? Some BI plans have opportunities for pre-college students, and could Etap track if students apply for opportunities when they arrive at college. There's quite a bit in that, but really getting into that transition into college and opportunities to be able to do research.
So all the difficult questions. So the answer is yes and no. Could Etap do it? Yes, it could. Was Etap designed for high school students? No. And the legislation that governs collection of data for minors is different from the legislation that governs collection of data for adults. So today, NSF doesn't collect data from K-12 students directly. And it is something that we are discussing currently, but Etap doesn't do that. If you feel this is important, reach out to us. We would be happy to talk to you and to understand which programs are supporting the K-12 students and in what ways, and how you envision using Etap so that we can think through how could we make this happen and discuss it with you. Ceci, anything to add?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that's another area from an institutional level I know that we're very interested in, is tracking what's happening with pre-college students. Okay, here's one. Is there a policy on how to gather demographic data or identifiers? Some institutions require the demographic data be collected separately from other types of data or indicators because of the sensitive nature of some personal data. And you touched on that, but can you expand a little bit?
I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure what the question is. Is the question whether we collect demographic data or whether we collect demographic data along with other types of data?
I think it's, do you collect it together? And I believe you do, right? In the
We do.
application, it's collected together and you have approval to do that. And it's not considered strongly sensitive information, but it is confidential.
Well, it is personally identifiable information and we protect it. But we do collect it as it is really critical for analysis. We want to, for example, see if students that participate in a program and on average are very satisfied with the program are equally likely to be satisfied regardless of their race and ethnicity, for example. Or we want to monitor outcomes, as Congress has required that we monitor outcomes, educational and employment outcomes for different subgroups of students. We couldn't do that if we didn't have the data merged. So we do, but we absolutely protect it, and we comply with the Privacy Act and other legislation that governs the protection, use, and release of individual data. We don't release ever the individual data. We release only aggregate findings.
Right, providing you with a much stronger analysis when you're able to do that. Does NSF currently plan to conduct longitudinal studies, such as surveys in future years, or will that be still left to third parties? I think this gets at the degree to which you're planning to analyze and use this data from a research perspective in particular.
I don't know. So the goal, and this was from the very beginning, and I think Cecilia talked about this at the beginning of her remarks, was to collect the data for monitoring. So NSF needs data for monitoring purposes, not only internally because we want to know what's going on in our programs, but because we also have to report every year and justify our budget. But we have to report to Congress, for example, and to other authorities. So that's data for monitoring. It generally is descriptive statistics over time. We also need data for evaluation. And in this case, Etap improves our ability tremendously to conduct rigorous evaluations. Of course, that's in the future when we have representative data, but given that we will have applicant data, we will be able to construct adequate comparison groups, well-matched comparison groups. And we can even envision in the future even more rigorous designs, depending on the ways in which Etap evolves. And we also envision being able to do research. And in fact, we have permission from OMB to do research using the data, because there are very important questions in the literature. For example, the relationship between financial aid and participation in the REU program. We don't understand that well. And so these data could help us answer really important questions that could influence important programmatic and policy decisions at NSF. What exactly are we going to do? It remains to be seen, depending on how the system evolves. And it really depends on how representative the data are of the underlying populations. But I just don't know. But I hope this will be a goldmine for NSF and also for the research community one day.
Well, we're at the end of our time, and I want to thank both of you so much for all the care and effort that you and NSF has put into creating this system. It's really well thought through and useful. And thank you for coming to our summit and providing this keynote and introduction or some more information to our summit attendees. We really appreciate it. And attendees, we have workshops coming up in a half an hour, so stay tuned through the virtual hub. And thank you again to Dr. Cosentino and Dr. Speroni.